All right, welcome everyone. This is Solana Smoke number 10. So it's been a while. Today is March 19, 2026. And we're going to do things a little bit different today. I think, during the past week, there was really this very interesting news article that came out about this kind of 50 million to 36,000 transaction. So we're going to be kind of putting our investigative hat today and really trying to understand what happened. And I'm really going to try to simplify it as much as I can so that everyone really kind of grasp the different angles of the story. And because this is happening on the Ethereum chain, and this show is called Solana Smoke, we will, of course, transition at the end into what would have happened kind of scenario on Solana. So before further ado, let's just jump in. So we actually have today, like I said, a different format. So the news broke out on March 12th. So that's about last week. And really, what happened? I think it's important to really start of how did this story landed. So within hours of really the transaction happening, every basically crypto news outlet had picked it up. It was all over Twitter, all over everything. And I mean, the story is quite fantastic. If you think about it from a kind of a journalistic point of view, you have a user that is on his phone, put 50 million into Aave and come out with the 36,000 worth of token. So from a sensation point of view, that's pretty crazy. The Aave founder himself, Stanley Kulakshov, actually posted on X and confirmed what happened. Clearly, from Aave point of view, the interface had warned the user. It was required that a checkbox would be kind of checked. It was on his phone, and the user confirmed. And as always, it's on the blockchain, so the blockchain kept the receipts. We even have CZ, founder of Bitcoin, that just said, sad to see this, of course. I think what really made the story blow up, it was the size of the loss, but was it intentional? This is what we're gonna try to kind of debunk today. So before we go any further, let's try to understand a little bit, what is Aave. So it's basically the biggest, lending protocol in DeFi. So it's more than 25 billion of TVL, and what you have is basically, think of it as a bank, but no bank. So because everything is on the blockchain, it's decentralized finance. You have no employees, no loan officer, no buildings, no nothing. You just have smart contracts on Ethereum, and now over the different, I think about 12 chains. And these smart contracts are managing about $25 billion worth of deposit. So how does it usually work? I mean, as you can see here, you have lenders, you have suppliers that, the deposit either ETH, USDT, any supported asset. And what they receive is something called A tokens. So for Aave tokens, and let's say you deposit USDT in the tool, you receive a USDT, and then you start basically getting interest on your assets. And on the other side, you have everyone that actually wants to have access to this, supply of liquidity. You have all the borrowers. Sorry, they take a loan, and there's no middleman. It's just the algorithm really basing its price on supply and demand. And so the other thing that was actually invented, I would say, by Aave is this flash loan concept, where basically it's uncollateralized loan that basically exists in one single transaction, because within one block in the Ethereum block, you would have everything that happens from the borrowing, the use, and the repay all within one block. And so this is why we have these MEVs bots that are using these flash loans, and we'll go a bit more in details in how it works. And so the Aave tokens actually itself is the governance tokens. And so you have, like in any kind of standard blockchain protocol, you have holders that, they have the opportunity to vote on the different protocol changes. And of course, you can stake your tokens in a kind of safety module to basically backstop the protocol in emergencies. So Aave was actually founded in 2017. It was back in the day called ETH Land. It was invented and created by Stani Kulachov, who was actually a law student in Helsinki. And it was rebranded in 2020. It was then called Aave, which kind of means ghost in Finnish. And now we're up to the V4 that is being launched this year. So actually, the story of these 50 million to 36,000, people say that he used Aave. I mean, he didn't just buy the token. He was within kind of this liquidity pool of 25 billion autonomous lending system. And he was basically trying to swap 50 million worth of dollars in a single click. And actually the system worked because he was, able to do that swap, but not exactly in the optimal conditions, let's put it this way. So what does it actually look like? It looks like one trade, one checkbox, and everything that went through. So we have the user that put 50 million of USDT, gets out basically 36,000 of token worth. And so you have the MEV that is capturing about, $46 million worth in all of this in 4 seconds. So if we're calculating, the profit per second on this transaction, we're looking at a 10 million per second. So of course there was no hack, there was no rug pull, no exploit. It was just a guy that was with his phone and just basically read the terms and condition too quickly, just click the checkbox and maybe shouldn't have done it. So the whale that has this wallet, kind of 20 days before the whole problem, deposits 50 million in USDT from Binance. Then in the morning or whenever that was, he wakes up, decide to swap it for Aave token. And the problem that the pool where actually the swap, the exchange was executed, had a very, very, very low liquidity. And so of course the Aave interface sees that you're trying to swap for 50 million and there was I don't know, like 50,000 worth of token in that pool that it was being used. So it basically tells you, listen, there's extraordinary slippage. The app literally makes you confirm that you wanna do that trade. But he checks the box and the transaction is confirmed. So let's try to understand, okay, what actually happened. So this was in Ethereum block 24643151. And what is actually happening is that you're ending up in a pool, which it's a DeFi pool called AMM, for Automated Market Maker. And so how does an automated market maker pool works? Well, very simply, it's an algorithm that makes it that, the formula X times Y is always equal to K. So you have, let's say, 11,000 worth of USDT for 100 Aave in this pool. So the price for Aave is that. And so what happens is, if you're trying to buy a lot, like this 50 million that I was trying to put, because the formula needs to stay constant, well, your price of Aave is just rising through the roof, right? And this is where basically you're losing a lot of value, because in terms of USDT of total value in the pool, it's locked, you know, and so you're just basically paying for an app that is way more expensive than it should be. And so when you start buying, you basically add USDT on one side and Aave comes out on the other side. But if you buy just a little, like we've seen here, like nothing moves, like it's all fine. Like literally here, you know, it's all good. But if you go on the extreme opposite, you know, price goes to the moon. And this is really, you know, what happened there. The bot didn't do anything to the price. The trader actually destroyed his own price himself. So what actually happened is we've got a pool that is completely distorted, right? Aave is theoretically priced about 152,000 per token, and really the market usually at that moment, I mean, it was really much lower. You know, we were at about 100 something, 113, I think, price per token. And so the MEV bots, they basically see this as free money. They see this guy wants to buy 50 million of something that actually we don't have the market for, but you know, the MEV bots are basically there for that, to capture this liquidity. So what does MEV stands for? It's actually maximal extractable value. So even in the name, you know that this is what the bot is for. And there are automated programs that basically do nothing all day. They just look at the mempool and take those opportunity. So within the same block, really the MEV bot, you know, wakes up. It takes a flash loan on another lending protocol called Morpho. And like I said before, the flash loan basically that he's going to borrow, he's going to use and paying back within the same transaction, within the same block. And the advantage that it has is that if actually there's a problem in the meantime with this flash loan, like it's just that the transaction just doesn't go through and the whole thing kind of reverse. So there's really zero risk for the bot. And so what the boss does, he sees that there's this 50 million that is coming in. So before the 50 million actually gets executed, the bot buys itself the Aave token so that it increases the price, and then the victim executes the trade, and then the bot directly sells the Aave at the extremely high price, make his 40 million whatever, and then repays the loan, and he just pockets the difference. And so he does this, of course, across different pools. And yeah, in total, the bot make basically 46 million. So you have basically all of these players. Okay, the trader comes in at 50 million, comes out of 36,000. So what actually happened? So the primary MEV bot made kind of 10 million on this 18 trade, where he actually borrowed this flash loan. And then, of course, we have two other very interesting kind of entities to look at. Is the Titan builder. So who's the block builder, sorry. And so their job as on the chain is really to basically assemble the actual content of the block, and is basically deciding in what order the transactions are going through. And so this is really where they get their power, because if you decide to order in a certain direction, you know, by putting the bot first, basically you're allowing him to make all that money. And so what actually happened is what you call an MEV sandwich attack. So you're basically putting the bot, the user, and the bot again, and this is how he walked out with all of this money. And then you have, of course, the Lido validator, which on this side is a kind of the block proposer, which Titan is basically paying them to make sure that their kind of alignment, their repartition of the transaction are actually happening in the direction that they want. And the Lido validator actually accept, propose the block, and receive as well 1.2 million. Most probably he didn't even know what was in there. I mean, in 12 seconds, you don't have time to analyze all of this. But the MEV bots, of course, do this. So the Titan builds it, the Lido propose it, and everyone gives the rest. And of course, because he went through all of these different pools, you have as well the decentralized exchange liquidity pools that are making some money. You have, of course, the protocol that was used on Aave that made couple of 100,000, but actually they actually felt bad, and they decided to offer like their fee return back to the user. So really, the money didn't disappear. It just got taken by these different entities. No one broke the rules. No laws were violated. No code was exploited. Everything worked as it was supposed to, and the MEV bots actually did exactly what they were supposed to. The only problem in this equation was really the human. And of course, there's like this theory that was this intentional? Yes, no. Was there money laundering? There's the kind of Arkham research that are kind of looking over where did this 50 million come from? It came from Binance. There are all sorts of kind of wallets that are linked. They were all created the same day. The same entity had sold, 500 million in ETH and many hundred millions as well of Bitcoin at that moment. So you'll be the judge of it. All right. And so really what happened is everything that took place on Ethereum, and this is why it happened is really because you had this mempool like we had seen before. You're basically having this public queue where the MEV can see everything, and the private block builder market can decide to organize everything that they want. And if we're actually changing the architecture, then we're looking at something way more different. So what would happen actually if we were on Solana? So Solana is really built differently. It would have been the same trade. Let's just be clear, like this disaster, it wasn't just a user error, it was the chain architecture of Ethereum that allowed this to be executed. The public mempool, the block building market, the slow slot time, all of these are structural features that created these conditions so that everything could happen. Of course, Solana doesn't eliminate the whole MEV. Nothing does, because there were always money to be made. But in Solana, it works a little bit different. So let's have a look. If we're looking again at Ethereum, you are basically signing your signature. It then goes into this mempool. It's basically a public, waiting room that is globally visible, and it sits there. Everyone can read it, and then the validator kind of picked it up. And usually the blocks are created kind of every 12 seconds. So that's kind of a long time. And you have the MEV bots that are basically watching it, and you have this gap that they are exploiting. They scan the mempool constantly. They see in this case that you're coming in with 50 million. They kind of calculate, build a strategy, bribe some builders to get their transaction happening in a certain sequence, and then you have your whole sandwich that works, because between the time that the user already kind of signed and confirmed it, so he was happy with whatever was going to happen. On the opposite, if we're looking at Solana, it looks completely different, because it doesn't have this public, globally visible mempool like Ethereum. It uses a system called Gulfstream, where basically the transactions are forwarded directly to the upcoming validator rather than being broadcasted to the entire system. And so, like I said before, there is still these MEV bots that are existing actually, and Jito is actually helping in this case, but there's no open public queue where the whole internet can monitor and front run your transaction. So the window for the bots to actually observe and react is far narrower, and as well your blocks are being validated every 400 milliseconds. So this is really where you see the difference. No, on Ethereum you have all of this time for the MEV to happen, whereas on Solana we're 30 times faster. So the reaction windows are way shorter, and then there's no public view of the transactions. So it's not enough to build these kind of complex multi-step strategies that happen. You don't have time to do this whole flash borrowing and routing around the different dexes, repaying the loan. It's not impossible, but it's just way harder. And so also on Ethereum, everything is sequential. So you're having one after the other in a fixed transaction. This order is controlled by, in this case, Titan Builder, which is the block builder. And this is why they can do this sandwich attack. Whereas on Solana, using the something called a C level, you're basically doing it in parallel. So everything is happening simultaneously. And so it's nearly impossible to actually decide, in what order the transaction will happen. And there's as well no private builder market. So of course, if the transactions that are being built in parallel arrive at the same time, one will have to go before the other, but you won't have kind of the capability to really decide the order. And so the manipulation is much narrower. And there is, of course, still some MEV, action on Solana. But what it does is that it's done completely differently, because it collapsed the entire builder-proposer hierarchy into something much more transparent. And whereas on Ethereum, you have this way and this time to actually, bribe. And on Solana, there's no such separation. Validators process directly. So Jito adds a bundle action on top, where the bots can, bid, of course, to have their transaction including in maybe trying to put them in a specific order by using these Jito tips. But then actually the tips are being redistributed to the Solana staker. So whenever you stake Sol, there's actually about 2 million a day that is redistributed within the ecosystem. And whereas in Ethereum is really kept by those bots, because there's no such thing as private building in in Solana. So of course, one thing is for sure, that this transaction was incredibly interesting to study, that's for sure. And the question remains kind of, if it would have happened on Solana, and the user would have still used kind of a very thin pool, would it have happened? For sure, but differently, like we've seen, if they would have ignored the warnings and forced a bad trade, Jupiter would have helped, but there's no safety in here. So yeah, that's basically the whole story. If we are looking finally a bit kind of a side-by-side comparison between Ethereum and Solana, the difference really is, on Ethereum you have this kind of public mempool, whereas on Solana you don't have it. But then you have the block time that is way different. You have the execution on Ethereum, where you can order the blocks, whereas in Solana you have this parallel action. Then on the MEV market, you have really private builders on Ethereum, whereas G2 on Solana is way more transparent and the tips go back to the stakers. And ultimately the routing, deciding what liquidity pools are being used. On one side you have Jupiter that kind of splits the amount, whereas on Ethereum you can kind of decide, okay, let's go to that very shallow pool route, which is way harder to replicate on Solana. So, well, I'm not here to really, tell you that the Ethereum is bad and Solana is perfect, but I mean, we know that Ethereum has a longer track record than Solana. It's been around for longer. MEV exists as well on Solana, that's for sure. But I think it's really a kind of a test on the infrastructures. 50 million trade. We don't know how it would have happened on Solana, but it would have happened differently for sure. So on Ethereum, everything was dark, muddy, opaque, and Solana, I think, would have had more transparency. So next time someone asks you, why are we, talking about Solana here on Solana Smoke, you've got the real answer. It's not just, speed or cheap fees. It's just that the machine is built differently. And what Solana is trying to do is not to have these kind of predatory extraction strategies, which I think in the long run actually are harming the whole crypto ecosystem. It's much more a platform where everyone can build together, and I think if we're all working side by side, we're basically building out, for the lack of a better word, a better ecosystem. So that was it, friends, for today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope it was interesting for you. A little bit more detail, but I always try to make it easy to understand. So that's it for Solana Smoke. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.